Welcome to today's Explainer. All right, let's get right to it. Today, I am stepping into the role of your senior strategy partner. We're going to go through a masterclass in executive decision analysis. Look, if you make decisions where being wrong has a tangible, multi-million-dollar cost, you really need to pay close attention. We are absolutely not going to use Claude AI as some polite little chatbot today. Oh no, we're going to use it as a ruthless, highly trained thinking partner. Let's dive in. I want to start with a bit of tough love directly from our source material. You know, cognitive scientists have known this for literally decades, yet professionals rarely apply it to themselves in the boardroom. Think about this quote. By the time most people sit down to analyze a decision, they have already made it. It's so true, right? Somewhere in the hours or days before the formal analysis even begins, your brain has just settled on a preferred outcome. And that means most of what we call formal analysis is, well, it's actually just sophisticated justification.
So this is confirmation bias in a nutshell. And what's super fascinating here is that this isn't a character flaw, not at all. It's a fundamental feature of human cognition. Basically, your brain picks a direction early just to reduce cognitive load, and then it aggressively defends it. But here's the real danger. This happens most often to highly intelligent, experienced professionals. Yeah, your confidence in your own rationality actually blinds you to the flaws in your own reasoning. Crazy, right?
To combat this, here's the exact framework we're going to use today to stress test your decisions. We'll cover 1. The decision trap. 2. Your AI strategy partner. 3. The assumption audit. 4. 3 advanced power phrases. And finally, 5. The complete strategy session. Section 1. The decision trap.
Okay, so when executives want to test an idea, they usually ask someone on their team to play devil's advocate. You've probably seen this. Someone raises a few obvious objections, you bat them away effortlessly, and then you walk away feeling even more confident. It strokes your ego, for sure, but it isn't rigorous. Compare that to what we call steel manning. Now, this requires genuine intellectual honesty. You aren't looking for easy objections here. You are actively constructing the strongest, absolute most powerful case a well-informed opponent could possibly make against your position. To do this right, you need an opponent without an ego.
Section 2. Your AI strategy partner. This is exactly why Claude is the objective, highly trained partner that most executives frankly never have. First off, zero political stake. Think about it. Every human advisor you have, your board, your peers, your team, they all have a social cost to telling you things you really don't want to hear. Claude? It does not care about your feelings, and it certainly isn't worried about its year-end bonus. Second, enormous pattern recognition. It draws on thousands of business cases and failure postmortems. That's way beyond the, 20 or 30 cases a human advisor might have seen in their career. And third, immediate availability. You get the kind of rigorous challenge a top-tier management consultancy would charge massive fees for, literally in the time it takes to write a prompt. But hey, let's establish a very clear boundary here. Claude lacks your ground-level reality. It doesn't know your internal company politics or the daily temperature of your specific market. So the rule is, use the AI to stress test the logic, but you absolutely must rely on human expertise to validate the ground truth. Section 3. The assumption audit. Every single strategic position rests on assumptions, and we can break these down into 3 levels. First, explicit assumptions. These are stated directly. Simple enough. Second, implicit assumptions, which are kind of embedded in how you describe the situation. But the third, the most dangerous ones, unstated assumptions. We treat these as absolute facts. We build multi-million-dollar plans on them. And when they inevitably fail, it feels like this huge, sudden surprise, even though, if we're being honest, it was structurally inevitable from day one. Section 4. 3 advanced power phrases. All right, power phrase 19 is steelman the opposite position. So let's say you're planning to expand a consultancy into the Saudi market. You'd prompt Claude by explaining your reasoning, and then you drop this line. Steelman the opposite position. Build the strongest possible argument for why this expansion will fail. Not the obvious risks, but the most powerful strategic case a rigorous analyst would make. Do not soften it. I'm telling you, if the response doesn't make you pause and really reconsider, then either your decision is genuinely bulletproof or, more likely, your initial brief just wasn't specific enough. Moving on to power phrase 20, which is a massive favorite of top-tier firms like McKinsey and BCG. What would have to be true for this to fail? This is a pre-mortem inversion technique. See, when you just ask your team what could go wrong, everyone's brain filters the list through optimism bias. But when you ask what would have to be true for failure to have already occurred 12 months from now, the brain completely stops filtering. It forces you to access those really uncomfortable scenarios that you were previously suppressing. To put that into perspective, imagine a 4.5 million dirham procurement contract. Instead of just giving you a generic, unhelpful risk list, Claude generates a highly structured failure map. It details the specific breakdown conditions, the likelihood, detectability, and actual mitigation strategies. I can promise you, decisions made after doing this exercise aren't just cautious, they are fundamentally, rigorously robust. Now for power phrase 21. What am I optimizing for that I should not be? Okay, warning, this is probably the most uncomfortable phrase in the entire playbook, but it is deeply, deeply transformative. It's designed specifically to catch misaligned incentives that systematically just ruin good intentions. You describe your current strategy and time allocation, and then you ask Claude to look at your actual behavior, not your stated goals, but what you're actually doing to reveal your real priorities. Just look at these classic executive traps. You've got teams optimizing for revenue instead of margin. Leaders optimizing for appearing decisive instead of actually being right. Consultancies optimizing for winning tenders rather than winning profitable ones. Or, and we're all guilty of this sometimes, professionals optimizing for just being busy instead of being effective. Because Claude operates totally outside your psychology, it can see these misalignments plain as day. Section 5. The complete strategy session. So let's pull it all together. Here is our sequential 4-step framework. We're going to run a major recommendation review right now. Imagine you were deciding whether to pivot your business from project-based consulting over to a retained advisory model. You really think it's the right move, but you want to rigorously test it first. So we run through the audit, then the steelman, the pre-mortem, and finally the misalignment check. Watch how beautifully this unfolds in practice. First, the audit phase surfaces 2 super dangerous unstated assumptions. Next, the steelman phase aggressively attacks those assumptions, and boom, it uncovers a massive cash flow transition gap you hadn't fully accounted for. Third, the pre-mortem steps in and maps the early warning signals for that exact failure scenario. And finally, the misalignment check reveals that instead of getting the revenue predictability you wanted, you're actually just deepening your client concentration risk. Think about that. 4 prompts. 1 absolutely existential mistake, completely avoided. The insight that changes how you see a decision you were about to make is the highest value moment. I completely agree with this. So here is my challenge to you. Take your most important current professional decision, the big one, the one where being wrong really truly matters, and run it through this exact 4-stage sequence. Let Claude do the heavy analytical lifting and surface those blind spots for you. Just a quick heads up on what's coming next. Day 8 is going to explore Claude meets coding. We're going to completely demystify how to automate repetitive work and build simple tools using plain, everyday language without ever needing to hire a developer. It's going to be a real game changer. Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final, kind of uncomfortable thought. I want you to take a hard look at your calendar, your strategy, and your recent decisions. Ask yourself with complete, ruthless honesty, what are you optimizing for right now that you shouldn't be? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Now get out there and start auditing those assumptions.